Hello and welcome. My name is Marissa Latrice. I hope that you are doing well. For today's video, I wanted to recommend some summer reads, but some quick summer reads that you can easily binge. I know for me, sometimes in summer, if you're going to the beach or it's just hot and sweaty and muggy, you don't always want to be tied down with a big book or like a big fantasy book, but sometimes you just want a good old quick book that you can just binge and get through pretty easily for a day out at the beach or a cool day in a cafe that you can just pick up and read all in one sitting. So I wanted to recommend some books that I personally love that are short, easy, quick, easily digestible books. Some that are maybe not as talked about or haven't been talked about in a while, maybe not as popular, or some that maybe you just haven't seen in a while or haven't seen around before ever. So I do have multiple genres that I want to recommend for today. I have some horror, some romance, some lit fic. So yeah, I have some pretty fun ones on this list. So let's get started. So speaking of more underground, like not as talked about books, I wanted to start off with the genre of romance. And when I was looking through my shelves and trying to figure out like a romance book that I picked up, I typically don't read romance, so I don't have a lot of romance recommendations, but I do know that a lot of people do enjoy reading romances during the summer. So I did want to still have something for this genre. So the first book that I'm going to recommend for today's video, it is more on the popular known side, but maybe you just haven't seen it in a while or heard about it in a while, or maybe you've read it before, and that is the All for the Game series. So it's very bright in here, but I do have the first 3 books in the All for the Game series, which I am pretty sure that you have heard of before. So the All for the Game series is a book series written by Nora Sakovic. There are 5 books officially in this series, but yeah, I know that the first 3 books kind of get talked about quite a bit, which is the Foxhole Court, The Raven King, and The Kingsman. I actually thrifted these books from a used bookshop, so I was super happy to find them. I actually had no intentions of ever picking them up because I knew that they were talked about a lot, but I also know that they can kind of be considered more slow paced. But when I saw all 3 of them like for like super cheap, I was like, well, maybe I'll pick them up, because I actually picked it up before. I picked it up previously on my Libby app, and I actually DNF'd the first book, the Foxhole Court, because I was really not into it. It was really slow for me. But when I did see how cheap they were on the shelves, I was a victim of that, just them being priced super cheap. So I ended up picking them all up, and I heard that you kind of just have to get through the first book, and then once you're through the first book, then the rest of the series gets better. So I was like, maybe I'll pick it up again, give it, just one more chance. But if you haven't heard of the All for the Game series, or heard of it but don't know what it's really about, it is a sports romance based on a fictional sport called Exy, which is basically just like a mix between hockey and lacrosse. It's explained pretty well. I think the author does a pretty good job of explaining this fictional sport. And we are following our MC, Neil Jostin, and he is a runaway son of a crime lord, and he runs away and ends up joining the school's Exy team, the Foxes, where he learns how to connect with his teammates who all have troubled pasts themselves, and they have to learn how to work together in order to succeed in this sport. So it is a found family, slow burn romance, character driven. Definitely check the trigger warnings if you are going to pick up this series. But yeah, the first book in the series is 260 pages. It is only indie published, so yeah, it is super short. With each book, they do progressively get longer, but still none of them are like really super long. They're still pretty bingeable, pretty digestible. So yeah, definitely you do kind of have to like just get through the first book. It is a little slow, but it's definitely worth pushing through and reading because the books literally get better as you progress. So that is actually the only romance that I had on this list. But yeah, I do not pick up a lot of romances, so that is the reason why. But that does lead us to our next genre, which is one of my favorite genres, horror. Now, I know that if you were looking for a summer ween horror, I have some good recommendations for you guys. So the first book recommendation in this genre is actually a thriller. So this is more so like horror and thriller, and it is a thriller by author B.A. Paris called The Therapist. The Therapist is a psychological thriller where we follow a young couple as they move into a new neighborhood in a newly renovated home as they try to begin their life together while getting to know all of their new neighbors. But they slowly start to come to the realization that their neighbors are a little strange, and not just strange, but they all seem to be hiding some huge and important detail from this new couple. All the while, our FMC in the novel starts to grow this strong bond and connection to her therapist, who is male and she is married. And the therapist himself actually has ties to this new neighborhood that they just moved into. But yeah, there is a plot twist at the end of this novel that I just did not see coming. But yeah, depending on the paperback or the hardback, it's just about 330 pages. So yeah, the plot twist definitely got me at the end. So I definitely highly recommend this. Super quick, super bingeable. B.A. Paris, like if you like Frida McFadden, or even if you don't, but you just like how like quick and fast paced and easy and bingeable her novels are, I think that B.A. Paris is like similar, but in my opinion maybe even a little bit better. So yeah, that is The Therapist by B.A. Paris. The next book that I am recommending is a horror, and this is a novella, The Salt Grows Heavy by Cassandra Call. This is a novella, so it is about 128 pages, so it is super short, but this is a reimagining of The Little Mermaid, except there is a princess, but she is dark and the prince is evil. Yeah, but yeah, there is body horror, gore, but what I really enjoyed about it is the lyrical prose within the novel. But it is lyrical but brutal, so definitely keep that in mind. Definitely, if you were not into gore or like body horror, then this may not be for you. But yeah, again, it is a reimagining of The Little Mermaid, so it does not follow that plot line. But how this book was explained to me is that we're following like after she has met the prince already, and kind of the aftermath that ensues. But yeah, super short, super easy to read. The writing was beautiful. Highly recommend. The next book is actually another novella, and it is What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher. Both of these novellas I think could interchangeably as well be read in like October during spooky season, but definitely if you are wanting a summer ween, I think that this is the perfect novella to pick up. What Moves the Dead is a gothic horror, and this is also, as well, like The Salt Grows Heavy, is a reimagining, but this is a reimagining of a Edgar Allan Poe short story, The Fall of the House of Usher. So yeah, if you are familiar with Edgar Allan Poe's writing or any of his short stories, then yeah, you will 100% enjoy this novella by T. Kingfisher. It is 176 pages. I thoroughly enjoyed this book. I mean, it's T. Kingfisher, so you kind of can't go wrong with picking up a T. Kingfisher novel. But yeah, this one is just super quick to read, super bingeable, and it's very immersive. I just fell completely into this world that T. Kingfisher created, and yeah, I think it was an excellent reimagining of Edgar Allan Poe's short stories. So yeah, definitely remember that these are reimaginings, so they drift off of the plot. It's just literally a reimagining of these popular fairy tales and stories. Last but not least, in the horror genre, and I do have the physical of this book, but it pretty much is just all of this author's works, and that is C.G. Drews. Listen, okay, like I will never shut up about C.G. Drews. I will scream from the rooftops about this author. So the book that I have, look at this gorgeous cover. Like, can we just Can we appreciate this, please? Like, look at this. Let's appreciate that really quickly, right? So I do recommend any and everything that C.G. Drews has ever written for this genre, as a majority of C.G. Drews' novels, at least the ones that I have read, which is most of them, they do run on the shorter side. All of them do, so you can quickly read them and binge them. I just finished a couple, but for this discussion I will be talking about Don't Let the Forest In, which is a YA gothic horror where we follow our MC Andrew, who is a writer and writes stories for our other MC and love interest, Thomas. And Thomas is an artist, so Thomas likes to draw the art from Andrew's stories, but then Andrew's stories start to come to life, and they come to life in a horrific, gory, extremely scary way. Yeah, there is yearning, a slow burn, it's atmospheric, naturistic. There are drawings in this book, but yeah, like the drawings, it definitely caught me off guard. I read this on my phone on Libby. I had just gotten through a part where C.G. Drews explained this one monster, and then I turn the page and then there's a picture of the monster, and yeah, so that it really only gave me a jump scare because of the pictures. Otherwise it's not really jump scary. But yeah, please, 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 I implore you to pick up C.G. Drews, and I highly recommend the first book that you pick up by C.G. Drews is Don't Let the Forest In. So the next genres that I'm going to be recommending are going to be lit fic, short stories, and poetry collections. So the first book in this category is Lost on Me by Veronica Ramo, which was translated by Leah Janesko. This is a literary fiction. It was longlisted for the International Booker Prize in 2024. And in this novel, we are following our FMC Vero, and she is an aspiring writer living in Rome. And so we pretty much follow her journey, her struggles and ups and downs of becoming a writer in Rome, as well as her family. Her family members are just such interesting, integral characters in this novel. But yeah, I really enjoyed this book because of the scenes that we got in Rome, or that the author captured of Rome. It just felt so beautiful, and nothing to me really screams summer than like a Europe trip. Like Rome, being in Italy just sounds so beautiful. Being in like Greece, it just feels like summery vibes. It actually was one of my favorite books of 2024 as well. But yeah, this book is 224 pages, so it is super short, super bingeable, quick and easy to read. Very beautiful writing, pretty, I wouldn't say it was fast paced, but the plot moves forward pretty well. So yeah, highly recommend. The next book in these genres is it's actually more a magical realism book, but I still wanted to put it in the fiction category. I wasn't too sure necessarily where to put this within these genres, but yeah, I definitely feel like I wouldn't write it off as a fantasy. It's definitely more magical realism, but it's also very lit ficky, and that is by none other than Adrienne Young, The Unmaking of June Farrow. So Adrienne Young is actually one of my favorite authors. She was actually the author that got me back into reading. So of course I was highly anticipating this book when it first came out, and for me it did not disappoint. I know that it does get mixed reviews, but for me I think it was an incredible novel. In The Unmaking of June Farrow, we follow our FMC June, and she lives in a small North Carolina town. There is something interesting about her and the line of women in her family. They all have a curse, and she is trying to figure out how she can break this curse. She does this by trying to piece together her family history that could potentially lead to finding the answers of breaking this curse. So yeah, it is magical realism. It is time travel. We definitely have like different time jumps within the POV that I just found incredible. It's definitely something that you do kind of have to like lock in on a little bit and kind of pay close attention to in order for you to see clues and hidden gems in there. But yeah, I just think Adrienne Young's writing is just, her writing to me is just magical. And I know that I believe this, like for some, this can feel like a more October-y read, and I think it does take place more so in autumn, but just it being like a small North Carolina town, it just gives me real summery hot small town vibes. So yeah, definitely if you're wanting something that is just general fiction but has a little bit of magical realism in there, then I definitely would highly recommend The Unmaking of June Farrow. This book is only 336 pages, so yeah, it's a little bit on the longer side in regards to it being a short book, but it is fast paced, and I think just the overall wanting to find out what is going to happen, where you're leading to next, I think moves the plot forward pretty well. The next book that I will be recommending in this genre, this is more a lit fic, and it is Go Tell It on the Mountain by James Baldwin. So this is actually James Baldwin's debut novel, and it is set in 1930s Harlem, where we are following our main protagonist, a 14-year-old John Grimes, throughout his spiritual and sexual awakening within his strict religious family. We explore themes of race, religion, identity, and important topics including critiquing American society and exploring the Black experience written by a Black author. I think James Baldwin in general, his prose and lyricism is just genuinely unmatched to me. I think that it is also a really good introduction into James Baldwin novels. If you haven't read any of his work before, I definitely think that this is a great first pickup from him. And even though it came out in I believe 1953, it is very modern day language, easily digestible, easily understood and easily understandable. Go Tell It on the Mountain is also about 220 to 272 pages, just depending on the edition that you pick up, but yeah, super short nonetheless, and you are going to want to annotate this book. So yeah, that is Go Tell It on the Mountain by James Baldwin. So the next book that I will be recommending in this genre is Jazz by none other than Toni Morrison. So let me set the scene for you in Jazz. It's 1920s Harlem. We're with our MC Violet, except she is attending a funeral. We jump into the scene where she's already at a funeral, and it is the funeral of her husband's teenage mistress, where it only gets worse from here. She attacks the corpse of this dead mistress. So yeah, from there we flash back to reveal how we ended up at that point and how Violet was pushed over the edge to this point to be attacking a dead corpse. But yeah, just the prose, the lyricism of Toni Morrison's writing. Like, if you have not picked up or read anything by Toni Morrison, I definitely think Jazz is an incredible starter book, an introduction into Toni Morrison's writing. And it is a super quick read, obviously. Just depending on the edition, it runs between 230 to 272 pages, just depending on the edition again. But yeah, just the prose and just Toni Morrison's writing in general is immaculate, phenomenal, completely out of this world. And again, like James Baldwin, I just think that she is unmatched in the literary fiction realm. After that, following the theme of just beautiful prose and beautiful lyricism, I feel like I cannot talk about this genre without talking about Clarice Lispector, and so of course I want to recommend Agua Viva by Clarice Lispector. The edition that I read was translated by Stefan Tobler. So yeah, definitely it is a translated fiction, and it was edited by Benjamin Moser, the edition that I read. This novel, it is very short. It is a stream of consciousness novel. So Agua Viva runs between 88 to 112 pages. It is lyrical, fragmented, and it is a stream of consciousness monologue from our female main protagonist, who is a painter reflecting on existence, time, and art. And yeah, it was definitely a book that when I first read it, it completely altered my brain chemistry. To this day, I don't think I've picked up anything quite like Agua Viva. Yeah, it was just one of those novels that really made me super thankful to be a reader, and it just made me super appreciative and thankful for words. Most of us really can reflect on or can really appreciate words and their beauty, but sometimes we don't really take the time to just really reflect on how beautiful words are and how beautiful they can really be when put all together. And just the writing style of Clarice Lispector really just made me appreciate words and books and just to read and to be a reader. So yes, highly, highly recommend Agua Viva by Clarice Lispector. I feel like this is a good beach read where you're already just like in the sun and just feeling like the sleepy haze and just being in a stream of consciousness of our protagonist. It's incredible. So yeah, highly recommend it. Super quick and easy. You can pretty much read it in all one sitting. The next book that I'm going to be recommending, it is No Longer Human by Osamu Dazai. And the translation that I read was translated by Donald Keene. No Longer Human, if you have not read it already, it is a classic. It is a psychological fiction where we are following the life of a man who feels completely alienated from humanity and who feels incapable of understanding normal human behavior. It is told in a first-person confessional style of writing, told from 3 notebooks from throughout different stages of the protagonist's life. But yeah, it's definitely an emotional read. It's definitely a book that upon finishing it, for me, it left me feeling very hollow. So yeah, definitely check the trigger warnings. I would definitely say check the trigger warnings of this particular novel because yeah, it does follow some themes and elements that can definitely be a little bit on the grimmer side. It's a little grim, but yeah, undoubtedly, like, it was just an incredible novel, translated fiction by one of the most renowned Japanese authors, Osamu. So yeah, depending on the edition, it does run between 176 to 192 pages. Another one that's just very lyrically beautiful. Lyricism is incredible. Prose is amazing. Definitely one of my favorite books of that year when I read it. The last and final book that I wanted to recommend under these genres is another translated fiction novel. I actually do have the physical of this book, and it is Happy Stories Mostly by Norman Erikson Pasaribu, translated by Tiffany Tsao. So as you can see, this is my annotated copy. Happy Stories Mostly is a collection of 12 speculative short stories, often focusing on characters who are almost happy or almost accepted. The book, which is this author's fiction debut, was another one that was longlisted for the International Booker Prize. I definitely did enjoy most of the short stories in this collection. I definitely enjoyed some more than others, but as a whole, I would still, of course, 100% recommend. I would definitely make sure as well that you check out the trigger warnings, as it does dive into and contain a few darker themes and darker elements throughout the short stories. It definitely is, I think, more on the melancholic side. But yeah, that is Happy Stories Mostly. Definitely pick it up. The next genres that I recommend, I do only just have one book in this realm, but it is a hybrid of nonfiction, fiction, and speculative fiction. I do just have one book in this category that I recommend, and that is Public Libraries and Other Stories by Ali Smith. This is another collection of short stories that contains interviews from writers and readers discussing their personal connection to libraries. The story themselves explore themes on grief, memory, and how literature shapes our consciousness and actions. Ali Smith created this novel as a response to threats of funding cuts on libraries in the UK. So definitely, if you are a book lover, a lover of words, a reader, then you will definitely treasure this novel. It definitely just touched my heart in all different ways, just because obviously being a reader, a lover of books, a lover of libraries, you just will undoubtedly love this book. And I think it's just proof of how much Ali Smith really is just one of us. How there are so many other people out there who are just like us, who just loves books, just want to protect the book community, libraries. And so yeah, Ali Smith published this in order to honor books and keep libraries alive. So It is about 240 pages, but again, since it is like a collection of short stories and interviews, it definitely does move fairly quickly, and I think Ali Smith's writing is incredible. Very beautifully written, very enjoyable. So that is Public Libraries and Other Stories by Ali Smith. The last and final category that I'm going to be talking about today and recommending is nonfiction. Now, I know this is not typically a more sought after popular genre or category, but I do have some pretty good recommendations for you. So the first nonfiction book that I'm going to recommend is actually a memoir. I actually do have the physical copy of this one as well, and that is M Train by Patti Smith. So I actually picked this edition up when I was in LA at the last bookstore. I had been having my eye on this book actually for a while before I picked it up. It was like in my cart on Etsy, and then yeah, I stumbled into the last bookstore and saw this on the shelf, so of course I had to pick it up. I read this, I think it was last year now, but yeah, it is a memoir by Patti Smith. And it is constructed non-chronologically, moving between past and present, dreams and reality. It's poetic prose, blends reality with dreamscapes, and there are even Polaroid pictures from Patti Smith herself put into the novel as well, which was a really nice element to see while reading the book. To just see Patti Smith's own pictures in Polaroid form was really beautiful as well. It just contributed to the beautiful writing and lyricism of this memoir. But yeah, I truly believe that only Patti Smith can truly write a memoir so poetic, but yeah, so beautifully written. And there is this cafe that Patti Smith always frequents, and I just really like that element in it, because as being someone who lives in the city and I have my own cafes that I like to go to all the time, it just felt like really like comforting and like relatable reading about that. But yeah, Patti Smith is just incredible. So I know that like Just Kids gets talked about quite often, but I definitely think that M Train is underrated, and I think it is again another one of those just good like summer beach reads that you can just pick up really quickly and just enjoy. It's almost like you're spending time with Patti Smith throughout her life in this memoir. So yeah, I definitely do like that element about it. It's just like you're sitting with your best friend and she's telling you her story about her life. But yeah, this memoir is just about 253 to 288 pages. So yeah, super quick, super easy to read. So the last and final book that I'm going to be recommending under this category and recommending for this video is another memoir. It is Girl Interrupted, written by Susanna Kaysen. Now, you may be familiar with this title just due to the popularity of the film that came out in the 90s with Angelina Jolie. However, the film is based off of Susanna Kaysen's real life experience from the 1960s when she was hospitalized in a mental hospital for BPD. And it is written in a vignette style that highlights the discrepancies between the clinical view and her reality of her mental health. The memoir also, for me, touches on the American mental health care system, or should I say the lack thereof. And I can definitely easily see how they were able to adapt this memoir into a film just because of Kaysen's writing. It is very fast paced. You're constantly moving forward, even though it's like nonfiction and it was her life, it was her experience. You're still left just wanting to know more. You want to know what's going to happen next. What is she going to discover next and go through next? So in that aspect, I felt that it does keep the memoir very fast paced, and you're genuinely always wanting to know what is going to happen next. But Kaysen's writing in general, to me, I think she could have done more fiction. I actually don't know if she's done any fiction work, but I feel like she could easily write a fiction novel just because of her writing style and just the way this memoir was told. I feel like it was very interesting and, you know, obviously very sad, but I definitely think a very important read that matters even in our modern day today. Definitely check the trigger warnings if you are going to pick this memoir up. It does touch on obviously sensitive and triggering themes, so definitely check on that. To keep yourself and your mental health safe. But it does run around between 168 to 192 pages, and it was released in the 90s. So yeah, it was just very fast-paced and nonfiction memoir for you to pick up this summer. So those are all of the books that I recommend. I feel like it definitely does give you a range of categories and range of genres for you to possibly pick up this summer. What are some of your summer plans or summer reading goals? If you have made it to this part of the video, thank you so much for watching. Definitely stay tuned for another video and subscribe for more content from me with a new video out every Sunday. Thank you again so much for taking the time to be here. Take care. Bye.